You have spent roughly 6 months of your life waiting at red lights. That is an enormous chunk of human existence surrendered to a blinking color palette that dictates when you go, when you slow, and when you stop. But why these specific colors? Why not blue or purple? Why is yellow the middle child of the traffic signal world? To understand the psychology of the road, we have to look back to the cold, dangerous iron of the 19th century. Before cars existed, we had trains. By the mid-1800s, the railway industry was expanding rapidly across Britain and the United States. Engineers needed a way to tell trains to slow down or stop without relying on hand signals from a conductor that might be invisible in the rain or fog. In 1868, a railway signal engineer named John Peake Knight installed the world's first traffic signal outside the Houses of Parliament in London. It was a gas-lit contraption that looked like a giant clock. It used semaphores, mechanical arms that moved up or down, during the day and red and green gas lamps at night. The choice of red for stop was already established in the maritime and railway industries. Red has the longest wavelength in the visible spectrum. This means it travels further through air, rain, fog, and dust without being scattered. It is literally the most physically penetrative color in the light spectrum. When visibility is poor, your eye catches red before it catches anything else. Red also carried a deep, biological, and cultural weight. It is the color of fire. It is the color of blood. It is the universal signal for danger, warning, and immediate cessation. When you see red, your brain is hardwired to associate it with a potential threat to your survival. So, why green for go? Originally, early railway signals used white for all clear. But this turned out to be a fatal mistake. In 1914, a train engineer in the United States crashed because he mistook a white light from a nearby house for a signal light. It was clear that the all clear signal needed to be a color that was impossible to confuse with standard house or street lighting. Green was the logical successor. It is located in the middle of the visible spectrum and provides a high contrast partner to red. Because green sits in the center of how our eyes process color, it is easy to distinguish from the high wavelength intensity of red. By 1920, the transition to green as the standard for go was nearly universal in North America. Then came the middle child, yellow. Yellow did not appear in the original designs. The early signals were strictly binary. It was either go or stop. But this binary system created a major problem. Because red and green were so drastically different, the transition between them was abrupt. Drivers were often caught in the middle of an intersection when the light flipped from green to red. There was no buffer, no warning. You were going 60 miles per hour, and suddenly, you were legally obligated to stop within a few feet. It led to thousands of rear-end collisions. The solution came from William Potts, a Detroit police officer. In 1920, Potts observed the chaos of the city's traffic. He realized that a third signal was needed to bridge the gap. He took the colored lights used in railway signaling, which were already using a pale yellow, and adapted them for a four-way intersection. He used four-way, three-color traffic signals mounted on towers. The yellow light provided the necessary transition. It served as a cognitive speed bump. It alerted the driver that the safety of the green light was expiring and the danger of the red light was arriving. Yellow was chosen specifically for its high visibility. It sits between red and green on the spectrum. It is bright enough to capture the eye even in daylight, but it does not carry the same immediate, stop, panic that red does. It is a cautionary hue. It triggers an analytical response rather than a purely reflexive one. By 1935, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices had codified this system across the United States. Red, yellow, and green became the global standard. However, the psychology of these colors is constantly being challenged by modern technology. In the era of autonomous vehicles and AI-controlled grids, we are beginning to see the limits of this 19th-century logic. Consider the dilemma zone. This is the space in front of an intersection where a driver is too close to stop safely when the light turns yellow, but too far to clear the intersection before the light turns red. Engineers have spent decades trying to calculate the exact timing of the yellow light to mitigate this, usually settling on 3 to 5 seconds depending on the speed limit. But even with the math, human error remains the variable. We perceive color differently based on our age, our vision, and the ambient light around us. Some countries have experimented with flashing greens or counting down timers to make the transition more transparent. Others have used all red intervals where every direction is stopped for a split second to prevent accidents. We have built our entire global logistics chain, our commute, our economy, and our personal freedom around these three colors. Yet, the system relies on the assumption that a human eye is looking at a light and making a split-second decision based on a color code defined in the Victorian era. Is it possible that we are reaching the end of the road for the standard 3-light signal? As cities become smart, lights could communicate directly with vehicle computers, bypassing human perception entirely. We might reach a future where the colors don't even matter because your car simply knows the intersection is clear. For now, you are still staring at those red, yellow, and green circles. They are not just lights. They are a universal language of command and control. They are a technological relic that has become a fundamental pillar of how we organize our society. The next time you pull up to an intersection and the light flips to yellow, notice that sudden internal tug of war. Your brain is weighing speed against safety, legality against convenience, and risk against reward. You are participating in a biological feedback loop that was designed to save your life, all while staring at a wavelength of light that has been warning humans of danger since we first learned to master fire. We are all controlled by these three colors. But perhaps, as technology advances, the real question isn't why the lights are red, yellow, and green. Perhaps the question is, how much longer will we need them to tell us when to move at all? So the question remains, why not blue? At first glance, blue seems like the perfect choice. It's bright, eye-catching, and today we associate it with modern technology. But the human eye sees things differently. During daylight, our eyes are much more sensitive to green light than blue. Even if both lights are equally powerful, green appears brighter and can be recognized from much farther away. For drivers making split-second decisions, brightness matters more than appearance. Blue has another disadvantage. Its short wavelength scatters easily in the atmosphere. That's the same reason the sky looks blue. Rain, fog, dust, and mist scatter blue light even more, making it appear fuzzy instead of sharp. Green stays clearer in poor weather, making it a much safer choice. There was another problem. What would blue actually mean? Stop? Go? Turn? Unlike red, which naturally signals danger, or yellow, which warns us to slow down, blue has no universal driving meaning. Adding another color would only confuse drivers. Engineers also considered people with color blindness. Instead of relying only on color, traffic lights were designed with a fixed order. Red stays on top, yellow stays in the middle, green stays on the bottom. Drivers can recognize the signal even if colors aren't perfectly distinguishable. By the 20th century, millions of traffic lights had already been built using this system. Replacing every traffic light with a new color would cost billions while providing almost no safety benefit. That is why the system has remained unchanged. Interestingly, blue still appears on our roads. Police cars and emergency vehicles use flashing blue lights because they are meant to grab attention, not to tell drivers when to stop or go. As self-driving cars become more common, traffic lights may eventually communicate directly with vehicles instead of relying on human vision. But until then, blue will likely stay off the traffic signal. It wasn't forgotten. It wasn't ignored. It simply lost to a color that was brighter, clearer, and safer. Sometimes, the best technology isn't the newest idea, it's the one that works best.